Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and today I want to dive into the Auburn Tigers, mainly their offensive side of the ball. Now, because defense, right, there's a lot more continuity on defense than you might expect for a team that has a new coach and had this many transfers come in. But DJ Durkin is still there at defensive coordinator, and they retained much more of their players from last year on defense than they did on offense. But just before I get into Auburn's offense, just real quick, if you guys have been enjoying all my college football content, I've been doing this daily the entire offseason long, and I'm going to keep doing it till we kick off. Just subscribe to me here and follow me on Twitter. I'm doing this every single day. It's been so much fun, and I really appreciate everybody who has been tuning in. So just digging into this Auburn offense, right? I mean, the story, obviously, Alex Golesh coming over as the new head coach from South Florida. Now, sure, it's his first time as a Power 4 head coach, but he was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee very recently. So he's an offensive guy, for starters, and he's done it in the SEC. So, yeah, he's not a head coach, but I am able to look at tangible experience he's had calling plays, being an offensive guy in the SEC. So I'm really not worried about, the play calling standpoint of it, right? I'm not worried about the coaching aspect of what Auburn can do on offense. But personnel-wise, you have a lot of USF coming up from the Bulls, from Tampa, up to the Plains this year. And it's worth noting, right? Like, USF was really good last year. And they've been one of the better teams, if not the best team in the American during the time these guys have been in college. But it's a totally different vibe, right? Because USF, these guys, they went into Gainesville and they beat Florida last year. They won a game against an SEC team last fall. But it's entirely different playing 9 conference games week after week after week after week than going and punching up in one game in week 2 to really kick off your season and be the marquee win of that year. It's an entirely different scenario. So I do believe it's going to be a challenge really for these players to adapt to the SEC, but it won't be for Golesh. And defensively, if I can trust Auburn's defense to keep teams contained, there's way less pressure on this offense. But let's just dive into the personnel a little bit here for Auburn. Obviously, you have Byrum Brown at quarterback. Right, he's the dual threat. I think I'm comfortable saying superstar, at least in the American, coming up from USF for his senior season. I mean, his legs really are his biggest weapon. He's such a fast, physical runner. I mean, he's violent. He's like a power back that can also throw the ball. So that obviously comes with this massive pros, right, where defenses have to factor in the quarterback run every single snap. And if they don't, or even if they do sometimes, it won't matter. But durability has been a bit of a problem for him throughout his career, right? He's had his fair share of injuries, and if not ones that sideline him, ones that at least hinder him, right, because of how many hits he takes. So you do kind of want his arm to develop just a little bit more. Maybe just can you carry the ball 2 or 3 less times a game? This will be effective, but if you're Auburn, you need Byrum Brown for 12, maybe more games this season. So if his arm is able to develop a little bit more, my ceiling for Auburn and Byrum Brown specifically, it goes way up, right? Just because he'll be taking less hits, he'll be running the ball less, which sounds backwards because of how much I do like watching him run the ball and how good it is for their offense, but just continuously taking the hits that he has taken, they've hurt him in the American, literally, in the SEC against bigger, faster, stronger linebackers and D linemen. I'm worried that could happen again. So the main adjustment I want for Byrum Brown is to run the ball less, but that will have to come with an improved arm, a little more accuracy, a little more consistency downfield. Then at running back, I'm actually very excited about what this running back room can be. Now, the SEC running back core of all 16 teams is crazy. I mean, the quantity of elite RB1s in this league is crazy. The depth is awesome, and Auburn is not that different, right? They bring back Jeremiah Cobb. He'll be a senior this year. He was 13th All-SEC last year. And then behind him are 2 big-time transfers. Bryson Washington comes over from Baylor. He was a 1,000-yard rusher as a freshman. Didn't quite hit that mark last year, but it was Baylor last season. Don't really blame him. But he's 6'2", 216, a little bit bigger than Jeremiah Cobb. Bryson is a great add, and they also bring in another USF Bull in Nakahi Davenport. Right, he comes up for his sophomore season. So as a freshman last year with the Bulls, he carried the ball almost 100 times, over 600 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Really good player as a true freshman. But now heading into your sophomore year, if you are Davenport, a lot of big changes. Right, I mean, a whole new league, a whole new caliber of athlete and of player hitting you snap in and snap out. It'll be interesting to see how he makes that adjustment and what that looks like, but to have 3 running backs you can more or less count on consistently is a massive privilege. And that's what Auburn has in Cobb, Washington, and Davenport. And on to the pass catchers. Your top 3 guys for Auburn this year are all USF Bulls. Jeremiah Coger, Chaz Nimrod, and Keyshawn Singleton. Now, they're all really good players, right? Singleton broke 800 yards last year. Nimrod broke 400 last year, only played in 7 games. He was a little bit beat up. And Kroger, just about 600 yards and 8 scores. Now, Nimrod was at Tennessee a while ago, right? So he actually also has SEC experience. Those two guys in Kroger and Singleton don't quite have that, but they proved they can play at a really high level last fall. Then behind those guys, they got some pretty exciting freshmen. Brian Williams Jr. Comes out of Orlando, and Deshaun Spencer is a 5'11", 165-pounder who had over 1,300 yards and 20 scores last year, as well as over 400 rushing yards as a high schooler. So those top 3 guys are big-time names coming up from USF. They'll be the main focuses. Those 2 freshmen, and Brian Williams and Deshaun Spencer, you have got to look out for. And at tight end, just to gloss over some of these names, they bring in 3 transfers. No tight end at Auburn was there last year. Jake Johnson comes from North Carolina. He broke 400 yards last season. Jonathan Eccles, there's your USF guy. He's 6'6", 235 as a sophomore, had over 100 yards and 3 scores last year. And then Arliss Boardingham, he's a senior. He started his career at Florida, then was at Bowling Green, and now he's back in the SEC at Auburn. So no real game breakers, doesn't at least feel like in the tight end room, but Jonathan Eccles at 6'6", 235, situationally, he can be an absolute monster. And then like we see with so many teams across the entire country in this day and age, the offensive line has a lot to prove early on. And that's really just because you have 5 guys who have, if at all, not played with each other nearly enough to really be super comfortable. Starting off with who has played together, right? You have 2 guys coming up from USF. In Cole Best at center, who is a senior, and he was 3rd team All-American Conference last year, and Cole Skinner at guard, who is also a senior. He was in Tampa last year as well. So those 2 guys, they'll be next to each other. They have experience, and it's good to have that in the middle of the offensive line. With the other 3 guys, at the other guard spot, you have Derek Plaz, who is a sophomore coming up from Miami. He only played in 4 games last year for the Hurricanes, but he was a part of that Miami offensive line that was incredible. He has, a history of being coached by Mario Cristobal, so there's something there. Right, if Cristobal wanted him, he had him for a little bit. You know that Plaz has something there. But now, in the same breath, he's now at Auburn for a reason. But I do believe that the ceiling is there with Plaz. And then 2 tackles. Joe Simmons, he comes over from James Madison. His senior season, he started all 13 games for the Dukes last year. But then Ty Buster, he's back at Auburn. He was a true freshman last year. Only showed up in 2 games, so he was able to redshirt. But he was a 4-star guy in 2025. So there's a good bit of talent on this Auburn offensive line for sure. But there's a lot of new. Right, not a ton of continuity, right? Ty Buster is the only Auburn Tiger who's back, and he redshirted last year. You have 4 guys who do have playing experience. Plaz has the least of that group, but they're not together. They're not at Auburn. So O-line hasn't necessarily been a massive concern coming out of camp, right? But it obviously does have some question marks. And with, a quarterback like Byrum Brown, who, like I said earlier in this video, can get hit, can get beat up, has some durability questions, that can be a bit of a problem. But with the running game they have, the continuity between quarterback and receiver with so much USF, and Alex Golesh having done it before at this level, the ceiling for Auburn's offense is very high. Now, if you've watched my stuff for a while, you do know that I'm a little bit lower on Auburn. I think I have Auburn at 5-7 this year. I had them being just short of a bowl game. But really, most of that's not even their fault. They play a really hard schedule, right? They open up SEC play against Florida, so it'll be Golesh and Summerall, but then they have in-conference road games at Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama. Any of those 4 games, if they win them, would be huge. And other conference games, right? They have to play LSU, that's at home. They got to play Arkansas, that's at home. But it's a tricky spot, that Arkansas game, which I've gotten into in other videos. Auburn's schedule is incredibly hard, which is really why I have their record not being super great. But I don't want that to take away from what I do believe Golesh can be at Auburn. I think that, having that offensive pedigree, how long can he keep DJ Durkin around? Because he's a really good defensive mind. It's Auburn, right? The ceiling at Auburn is always very, very good. This year, while I do believe that's still the truth, still the truth, where the ceiling is very good, I'm a little bit lower on them. But this offense, led by Byrum Brown, a good bit of continuity, even though it is a brand new scene for a lot of these guys, they're still there together. Auburn's offense, if it all clicks, can be very dangerous.